Hey, what's going on, everybody? Again, this is Marvin Scott with First Friday Finance. I'm so excited to be here, and I hope that you've been able to follow along. And again, if you haven't been able to catch the broadcast live, just remember, just go to LM3 TV on YouTube, and you can watch the broadcast. Try your best to do the challenges and keep up with it because really, I truly believe that as you follow through and do those things, it's going to really help you in the long run. I want you to remember that first of all, this is not a sprint; it's a marathon because we're talking about building wealth. We're not just talking about just managing money. We're talking about building wealth. And so building wealth is a process, right? Building wealth is a process. So one of the first things we got to do is identify, where our money is, on how we're handling what we have. And then how do we bring in more money? How do we cause that money to grow, and so forth and so on. And the other thing I would say is this wealth management that we're trying to build, this wealth that we're trying to build is generational. There's so many things that I wish I would have taught my boys when they were very young, but I couldn't teach it to them because I didn't know. So I didn't start teaching it to my boys and talk to my boys about certain things until they were older, because that's when I started coming to my own and understanding certain things. And so we start having these conversations. And so remember, our children, we learn by what we hear, by what we see, and what we experience, right? And so a lot of times, just because you're not saying it to your child doesn't mean they're not learning, because they're able to watch. They're able to watch what you do. So they watch how you spend your money. They watch. Think about this, right? This is so funny. What's funny to me now, I can remember, when the boys were young, and I wasn't into money management, and again, I was just kind of going through the motions, so to say, and we were making money, and money was going out, coming in and going out, coming in and going out. And anyway, we had a habit of eating out all the time, right? And so my boys used to think every time we passed the fast food restaurant, it was time to eat. And so really what we did was we created a habit in them where they didn't eat out. I mean, they didn't eat at home a lot. They like to eat out. And every time we would pass a place, they would eat out. I never told them, hey, look, you guys need to eat out all the time. I never said that, but what they saw was our actions. We ate out a lot. We spent a lot of money eating out. Right. So to me now, when I talk to my sons now about managing money and they're talking about saving money, it amazes me because now they're starting to cook. So I was talking to my youngest son the other day, and he was talking about how, he's going to buy his groceries. So he's not going to eat out as much, so he can cook more food at home so that he can, manage his money and build up a little more money, have a little bit more money in his pocket. And so again, but that's something that he had to learn later in life, because as a father, I didn't teach it to them when he was younger. It was something that we did when we was older. So just remember and understand, if you have children, they are watching. It's not just about what you say, it's about what you do. And if you manage money appropriately, I promise you, they'll start managing money appropriately, because they're going to see you. And then they're going to hear you, and then they're going to have their own experiences. And then from there, they'll begin to grow. Because remember, wealth management is 80% mindset and behavior. It's 80% mindset and behavior. It's mental, 20% skill. You don't have to have a lot of skill to build wealth. You don't have to have a lot of skill to build wealth. Remember, we gave the example, in our first episode, of the lady who worked in the cleaners, right? And all she did was just put money aside, just put money aside, just put money aside. All she did was save. And so when she passed away, before she passed away, she donated $150,000 to the University of Southern Mississippi. So again, but no one would assume that she could do that, but she did because she had the right behavior. The right behavior was just putting money aside. And then our next episode last month, we talked about Miss Howard, a lady who worked for Walt Disney, who she was his in-home housekeeper, and she did the cooking and the cleaning, things like that, right? But what he did was, instead of paying her a large salary, he gave her Disney stock, right? So over the 30 years of working with him, not only did she put her money aside, because she started buying stock as well. So when she passed, she had over $9.5 million in Disney stock. So understand, it's a behavior more so than it's a skill. So she didn't know, let me go out here and let me study the stock market and let me see which stocks are the best ones I should buy. She just kept buying what she knew. She just created a habit, a behavior of buying Disney stock, and she wound up having $9.5 million worth of stock. So got to get that. Now, let's look at this real quick. There's 4 steps to creating a budget. And I want to talk about these 4 steps very quickly because really what we've been doing with our challenges is getting you to the place where you're ready to develop your own personal budget. Because now, again, let me say this. A budget now is your personal spending plan. Your budget says, this is how much money I'm bringing in. These are all my expenses. This is where I'm putting my money. So I know, let's say, for example, in my budget, I have set $600 for a car, right? And my car is my car note, if I'm putting car insurance in there or whatever, right? And I go out, I need to get a new car, and I go and I spend $700 a month on a car, right? That lets me know that I'm over what? Over budget, because the contract, the plan that I had with myself was in my area of car for my budget, I was only going to spend $600. So this budget is my spending plan, right? But again, I cannot develop a budget if I don't have this first step, and that's identify how I'm spending money now. That's the first step. I got to identify how am I spending money. So again, I actually, I beg you, to really sit down. If you haven't done this, this month, go through and track your spending. Track your spending. Identify how you are spending money now, right? Because again, some people say, well, I don't really have no money to spend and I ain't really spending money on anything. Okay, well then track your spending. Then let's guess what? There shouldn't be a whole lot of extra stuff. It should be very simple. Track your spending. I can remember me and my wife, when we started trying to get on track with budgeting and things like that and really understanding a budget, I can remember talking to her and we were talking about just from the standpoint of she would go to Walmart, right? And she would go to Walmart and she wouldn't spend a lot of money. But she might go spend $20, $30, right? $20, $30, which is, for us, that's not a lot of money. But she was going multiple times a week. So understanding those $20, $30 started what? Adding up, and you're going to get this and you're going to get that. And you will call little odds and ends, which were not necessarily necessities all the time. They were just little what? Odds and ends, and you're paying $20, $30, but you're going and let's say you did this 5 times out of a week. You know what I'm saying? So that's $150 a week that we're spending on odds and ends. So again, identify how you're spending money. And then number 2, evaluate your current spending. Really sit down and look at it and evaluate. Look at what things you can keep, what things you shouldn't keep, what things you should get rid of. Some things you put in there and you're saying, I need this, but you don't really need it, and we'll get into really, what to watch out in your budget, like watch out for leakages and watch out for things that are not necessities disguised as a necessity. I'll give an example. Like someone says, I want a new car, and the car is a necessity, but a new Cadillac Escalade may not be the necessity. That just might be a want and not a necessity. So, because that Chevy Malibu or that Hyundai may work just as fine, but the whole point is you want an Escalade. Anyway, I thought I'd just throw that out there for somebody. Yeah. Now, so I have a question. Is spending connected to how you're feeling? Yes. Again, a lot of us are emotional spenders. And so, in this next month's challenge, one of the things, and we'll give it to you, but one of the things we want to do is we want to journal how we feel when we're spending. So you want to write down, how you feel when you're spending money, how you feel when you're saving money. You want to write down all those different things. But yes, a lot of us are emotional spenders. And either we're going to buy food out of emotions, we're going to buy clothes out of emotions, we buy different things like that. So again, so evaluating your current spending is also evaluating how you feel emotionally. That's a very good question. And then another thing you want to do, and when you're setting the budget, is you want to set spending, savings, and investment goals. You want to set spending, savings, and investment goals. So it's just not just how much you want to spend, but it's how much do you want to save? And then ultimately, how much do you want to invest? Now, and again, we'll talk about investments later, because investments, you can be mildly aggressive, moderately aggressive, or you can be aggressive, and so, and we'll talk about that later. But again, at least, you want to start setting goals, how much you want to spend, how much you want to save, how much you want to spend in different areas. And then I would say this: savings is key. So, because in a sense, we always say pay yourself, right? Always pay yourself. So instead of just getting all your money and it all goes out and you're paying everybody else, you should also make sure you pay yourself, right? So pay yourself. And that's one of the ways, paying yourself. One way by doing it is by having savings goals. So I want to save $25 a week. You know what I mean? That may not seem like much, but again, that's $100 a month. You follow what I'm saying? That's $1,200 for the year. Think about this. If you start now and you're 25, you know what I mean? In the next 30 years, how much would that be? And then if I add that savings goal and then couple that with an investment strategy, an investment goal, now that $1,200 a year actually begins to add up a lot faster. And so it becomes a whole lot more. Hence, by the age 55, if you're 25, 30 years from that point, you could be ready to retire and not really be worried about money. Why? Because you had a goal, you had a plan, and you worked your plan, and you reached that goal. All right. And then the next thing is track your spending to make sure that you stay within your guidelines. All right. It's so important to understand that you got to track your spending. Right. So in other words, I set my goals, everything is in place, and now I got to make sure that I monitor it, because there'll be times where I may get off track. So monitor your goals, stay on top of that type of stuff. So you got to look at your budget every month, weekly. You got to do weekly audits, at the end of the week to see, hey, am I still on track? Did I spend too much money in a place where I shouldn't have spent some money? You know what I mean? Because it's important for you to do that. So again, always continue to track your spending. It not only is it what you need to do in order to develop a budget, but it's a key part of the budget to make sure that you're on. If you find any overages, how do you fix that problem? How do I get that back on track? It says, is there a realistic amount for a beginning saver? To my savior. Saver. Really, a realistic amount is start with anything. If you can do $5 a week, $25 a week, it really depends on where you are, and then setting a goal. The key is just start. Just start. For example, it would be great if you can do, say, $100 a month at least. You know what I mean? $25 a week, $100 a month. But if you're saying right now I'm not there, at least start somewhere. At least put, $50 a month, $25 a month, but start somewhere so you can see some money starting to build up. And then once you build it up, to a certain level, you can take that money and do some other things with it, and to cause that money to grow. Remember, you don't eat an elephant all at one time. You got to cut them into pieces, and then it's still one bite at a time, right? When you build a house, right? Think about it this way. You're going to build a house. If you're going to build a house, what's the first thing you got to do? First thing you got to do is get a plan for the house. What do you want the house to look like? How big is the house going to be, right? Once you set this plan in place, this goal of how big the house is going to be, then you know what size lot to get. Once you get that lot, now you got to do what? You got to clear it. You got to build the foundation. You got to set the framework up for it. You see what I'm saying? So it's a process. So reaching your financial goal, look at it as a process, and don't look at it as something where, you know what, I want to get there overnight. Don't try to be a millionaire overnight, but understand, if you change your mindset, develop a plan and work your plan will work for you. And I promise you, if your plan is to be a multimillionaire, you can get there, right? You can get there. Because understand this, think about this, like when we go out in our mindset and our behaviors, you got to understand, people study our mindset, study our behaviors. They study these things, right? So credit card companies know and understand that most people they'll use a credit card approximately 20% or more before they use cash. So again, you got cash in your wallet and you got a credit card. Most individuals will use their credit card 20% of the time more than they'll use cash, more often, because we want to do what? We want to save our cash. So we'll use that credit card. But in the long run, if we're not careful, that credit card is going to eat up more of our cash. So understanding when you look at it, these credit card companies, they have practices because they understand your mindset. And while you have that debt mindset, the credit card company, they have practices they want to feed off of that, because they get paid. They get paid every time you use that card, because it's about interest. It's about interest. Think about this, right? So credit card companies, one practice they have is aggressive marketing, right? Aggressive marketing. Now, years ago, they used to do this. They put laws in place that stop them from doing it now. But years ago, what they used to do is they used to send you cards that were already activated and ready to rock and roll. So once you got that card, all you had to do was go swipe it and it's working and you're in debt, right? So they can't do that anymore, right? But what they do is now they'll send you something in the mail saying, hey, you've already been pre-approved for X amount of money, right? Why? Because again, they want you to get in and start using that credit card, using credit, because that's how they make money. You know what I'm saying? Think about this. There's a book called the Richest Man in Babylon, right? And that was one of the things that they would do. They would take their money and loan their money to the banks so that their money would gain interest, right? There's also a story in the Bible where Jesus tells a story, and he says the good master gives one man 5 talents. He gives another one 2 talents and another one 1 talent. And many of you may know the story. The one that had 5 talents, he worked and got 5 more, had 10. The one that had 2 talents, he worked and got 2 more and had 4. But the one who had 1 talent, he said he hid it, right? And the master told that servant, he said, "You're a wicked servant." He said, the least you could have did was gave it to the money changers so they could have got usury, so that they could have got interest. So they make money off of getting interest. And the same way that these credit card companies make money off of interest, so should you. You have to get into the mindset of, how can I put my money in a place where my money can get interest? Remember, your money is a willing worker. It never gets tired. It never gets sleepy. It likes to work all night long. It just does not like undue pressure, right? So in other words, and now I don't want to get on this rabbit trail, but money likes to work. So I would say this to you. Find ways to make your money work for you, the same way that these credit card companies live off of interest. Put your money to work so that your money can live off of interest, right? So what credit card companies do, they market. The next thing they do is they try to give you higher credit limits, right? So again, because the higher the credit limit, the more you're going to use. Most times it takes extreme discipline to not use more than 30 to 50% of your credit. It takes extreme discipline because it's so easy to swipe it, to swipe it, to swipe it, right? I don't have the money in my pocket. I don't have the money in the bank, but I got it on this card. I can do what? Swipe it. Oh, I'll pay it off. Oh, I'll pay it off. And then you don't pay it all off, right? And so you get higher and higher. The amount you owe goes up. But now remember, they're getting interest as the amount you owe goes up, the more they get paid. So it benefits the credit company for your amount that you owe to go up, because now they get paid more money. Think about this, right? So you borrow money, right? You borrow money to pay off, to pay for a car. Again, that's not really long-term, extreme long-term debt like a credit card, but let's say you borrow money to pay off a car, right? So when you get that money to pay off that car, so you get this car. Now, the extra money that you have to pay on that car, that's the interest. So if the car costs you $10,000, how much in interest did you actually pay? The first $10,000 was the bank getting their money back for what they borrowed, for what you borrowed. So they just broke even, right? Where they make their money now is the extra that you have to pay on the interest. Right. So, so if you wind up paying $13,000, that meant you paid $3,000 in interest. And so how many loans do the bank want to give out if they're going to be able to get $3,000 in interest back off of each loan? You know what I'm saying? So it behooves the bank sometimes to increase your credit limits because they know you're going to keep going up. And the more you owe, the more interest you pay, the more money they make. All right. Another thing is they give you low minimum monthly payments, right? Low minimum monthly payments. Oh, that is the worst. Think about this. A credit card is designed with the minimum monthly payment, right? It's designed to take over 10 years to pay that off. So you're paying the minimum monthly payment, and it just seems like you are never eating into it because all it's doing is paying just enough to pay the interest and a small amount of the principal. So it just, oh man, just like you feel like you're in this never-ending cycle because your balance is not going down on your credit card, right? But yet still the amount that you owe keep going up because you keep using it, and you're paying the minimum monthly amount, and you think, okay, I'm on top of this thing because I'm paying a monthly amount, but you're never getting ahead, right? And the bank and the credit card company, they know this and they understand this. So I need you to understand it, and so that's why we got to get into this mental game, because you know what? I'm not just going to pay you the minimum monthly amount, even if I got to pay $10 extra, right? $10 extra a month, $5 extra a month. You know what that does? It keeps chipping it down. I had a car, right? And I paid $5 extra every month on that car, right? And what it did was it took me from paying that car off in 5 years. I was able to pay that car off in a little over 4, right? Just by paying $5 extra, because that $5 now is not going towards the interest. It's going straight towards what? The principal amount. As the principal amount goes down, the amount of interest I have to pay them also goes down. So again, even though they give you low minimum monthly payments, you want to, when possible, make sure you pay a little bit extra to do that till you get it off. And then the other thing that, of course, that the lenders like to do is they like to charge high interest rates, right? Think about this. They'll say, okay, you got 6 months, same as cash, right? But if you don't pay it off within that 6 months, then guess what? It's going to balloon to 19.9%, 24.9%, something like that. It's going to balloon. Why do they do that? Why do they offer you 0% interest for 6 months, for a year? Why do they do that? because they know most people won't pay it off. They've studied the behaviors and said, you know what, if we want more people to buy in, let's give them a different type of bait. So they're going to bait you in with 0% interest, knowing that at the time when that 6 months is up or that year, you're not going to have paid it off. And they're going to go all the way back to the beginning and charge you all of the interest that they could have charged you. But they said, hey, we gave you 6 months to pay it off, or we gave you a year to pay it off, right? So now they're going to give you a higher interest rate, and they're still going to get all of the interest that they could have gotten that first 6 months of that year, because they know you're not going to pay it off. So when you understand what their expectations are and you understand what they're doing, all we got to do now is change our mindset and say, you know what, I'm not going to give you that free money. So if you give me 6 months to pay it off, then guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to have a plan in place so that in 6 months, this is paid off and you didn't make any money off of me, but I got something from you. Because you got to remember, if you pay it off in 6 months, that company did not make any money off of you. But if you do pay it, but if you don't pay it off, they make all the money that they expect to make, right? So when you understand that, you can do that, right? One of the things I want to say, again, just remind you of, it's about what? It's about a mindset, right? So I'm going to give you a few things that are a debt mindset, right? A debt mindset, number one is spending too much, right? Spending too much. And I got these abbreviations. I wonder if you could tell me what KUWTJ stands for. I just kind of put that out there. Let's see if you can tell me what that is. KUWTJ, right? It's a common one. Keeping up with the Joneses, right? So one reason we spend too much money because we're trying to keep up with somebody else. Now this other one, what does LRODT? LRODT, right? Look rich or die trying. How many people do you know they're just spending so much money trying to look wealthy rather than be wealthy? You follow what I'm saying? Think about this. Think about this. How much does stock in Nike or cost, right? And you'll spend $200 or $300 on a pair of Jordans, but you won't buy stock. You follow what I'm saying? And so how many pairs of Jordans do you have? That's how many stocks in this particular company you can have. And the Jordans, yeah, I mean, they go up in value. Okay, so are you now getting to, so you're just going to be a reseller of the Jordans? If you're doing that, then you're doing it as a business. Okay, that's one thing. But if you're doing it because you got to have your closet full of Jordans and you just got to have so many different pairs of Jordans, but now you don't, as I say, the old folks say, you don't have a pot to piss in and a window to throw it out, then that's a problem. That's a problem. You're spending too much trying to look rich, trying to be a certain way. You follow me? I can remember growing up, we used to my mom used to go to Kmart and get these blue tracks. These were blue shoes. They had like a brown or beige bottom with the 4 lines on them, because we couldn't afford any type of shoes, right? We couldn't afford that. I can remember playing Part 1 of football when I got my first pair of All-Stars. They were orange, and these All-Stars, I had to wear them for everything. I didn't have cleats. So those All-Stars were my cleats. And one fun memory that I had is while I was playing in the game, and I can remember I caught this ball, and I heard after I caught the ball and I'm running down the field, I heard my uncle Wade say, "That's my nephew. That's my nephew." I could tell by the orange All-Stars. So, but you have to understand that you can't try to live up to somebody else's standard. I have a question that says, what if you are a Jones? We have to set the standard. No, you don't. Think about this. We're talking about generational wealth. I was talking to somebody the other day about how I can remember, like, in my immediate family, I was the only one of my brothers and sisters to leave home and go to college, right? And so, talking about changing wealth, then I look at my nieces and my nephews. My brother Ernest, their children. They gone to college. They got jobs and managers with the government, in the military. And I'm so proud of all of them and just what they're doing. And so, as a family, our wealth is what is changing, but it doesn't happen overnight. You follow what I'm saying? And so, how do we as a family build up wealth so that it's not just for my children, but it's for their children and their children's children? Does that make sense? So, setting a standard on what, how do we manage money? That's the setting a standard. I would rather for you to set the standard and have money in the bank than have Jordans on your feet. I'd rather for you to be rich than look rich. Does that make sense? All right. Real quick. Another thing is this: a debt mindset is not keeping track of bills. If you say, "Oh, I forgot to pay a bill," that means you're not keeping track. So, and again, your credit score is important because now that affects the interest rate that you get charged. The better your credit score, the better your interest rates, right? So, not keeping track of bills is a debt mindset. You should know what bills you have and you should know when they're due. And don't get me wrong, I understand life happens and you get tied up, you get busy because other things are happening, going on that normally don't happen, and that takes your attention. That can happen, but that shouldn't happen all the time. If not, you should be able to keep track of your bills and know where your money's going. Using credit cards to pay for essentials. That is a debt mindset. Now, let me say this. I'm not against having credit cards. I know some people say cut up your credit cards. Me personally, I'm not against using credit cards. One, if you're not using over 30 to 50% of your credit card balance a month. And two, as long as you're able to pay it off by the end of the month. As long as you're able to pay it off, then I'm not against that, because with this age of fraud that we have, it's easier to get your money back from a credit card company than it is for someone when you're using your debit card and they get access to your actual bank account. If they get access to your actual bank account, that becomes a different animal, and it's harder to get that money. And it can really mess up your life while you're trying to get that right. So I'm not against using credit cards. Just understand you got to know how to manage that monster. If not, it'll get out of control. And then only paying the minimum due. I think we've already talked about that. Only paying the minimum due can be it can be a big problem. So always remember, whatever the monthly balance is, always tend to try to pay more. Now, if you're one of my clients and you have multiple credit cards and we're trying to come up with a payment plan, then some cards you may be paying the minimum because we're trying to come up with a plan to get you out of debt. But that's something that we'll talk about later on. And then the last thing we'll talk about is spending on impulse. Right. And questions earlier was, does how we feel affect how we spend? A lot of times, yes, it does. And, so you got to be careful and not just spend on impulse. I'll say this, me and a group of guys, we talk about trading and we do our Forex trading and things like that. And one of the biggest problems sometimes we say we have is, we can make money for the day and we've made money. And then you want to turn it off, right? Or you should turn it off, but we don't. And then all of a sudden, you get a signal or you look at a chart and you see something and you get this impulse, right? You get this impulse to get in this trade when you know you shouldn't have gotten in this trade, and you made money all day. But now because you got in the trade on impulse, this one trade goes the wrong way and it potentially can take all of your winnings, right? Well, it's the same thing with spending on impulse. Every time you spend on impulse, that means you're buying something that you were not planning to buy, that you were not prepared to buy, and it keeps taking your winnings. It keeps taking your earnings, and you just buying on impulse. So again, control impulse spending, and we'll talk about that later. Real quick, Here it is. It says, the question says, what's something you can do to help with the impulse? One thing, me personally, one thing I say that helps with impulse is one, when you're feeling emotional, don't go to a place where it's easy to spin. I mean, that's it. Two, always ask yourself this question. Anytime you get ready to make a purchase, always ask yourself this question: do I need it? Do I need it now? Right? It's not about can I afford it. It's not about is it a bargain or is it on sale. It's do I need it? If you always ask yourself, do I need it? Even though you're getting ready to buy something on impulse, you always check yourself with that question. And if you don't need it now, you got to get your emotions under control. And that's why you got to understand what are your triggers, right? You can't confront, you can't conquer what you're not willing to confront. So you got to be able to know what your triggers are, what trigger you, what gets you excited, what gets you sad, what makes you want to go out and buy, so forth and so on, right? And you can't want to go out and buy stuff just to prove somebody wrong or show them what you can and can't do because they think you can't afford it. Because guess what? No one knows what's in your bank account but you, right? And so just because someone thinks you can't, don't let that bother you unless it was your plan to buy something. If that's your plan, then you're not impulse buying. You're buying because this is my plan. This is what I'm going to do. And I'm not going to pay more money than expected to get what I want. Okay. All right. So I want to thank you guys so much. I know I've been talking a lot here, and hopefully I've said some things that will help you and start building up with that mindset of what you want to do and where we want to go, because we're building wealth management. We're building wealth. We're building wealth. And again, it's a process. So again, please be patient. Please be patient as you're building wealth. That's going to be key. Don't expect for everything to turn around and be perfect overnight. Be patient, and I promise you, you will get there. You'll reach your goals if you be patient. Work your plan, and your plan will work. 30-day challenge for this month. What we want to do is, again, we want to go back, track our spending like we did the first month, right? Like we did in August. Then we want to repeat our financial fast, what we did in September. So again, we want to track our spending and then look at certain things that we say, you know what, we're going to do with that because I want to save that money. I want you to do that. Save that money. Put that money aside. But this time, what I want you to do also is I want you to keep a journal. Write down, how do you feel? When you're going without, what's going on? How do you feel? How do you feel when you're saving money and you're seeing the money build up? Some of you might be feeling excited because you're able to put more money in and just build it up and you're getting excited. Some of you might be frustrated because it's not coming fast enough. Just be patient. But I need you to write down how you feel, track how you feel. When you make purchases, when you do things like that, if you're going without something, we need to deal and wrestle with those emotions, because remember, it's 80% mindset, behavior. And the only way we're going to be able to conquer that mindset and behavior is to really know what that mindset is to really know how you feel. So again, track your spending, do the financial fast. But this month, what we're going to do is we're going to journal, write down your emotions, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of those, because we all feel some kind of way when we want to buy something and we can't get it, right? But we also should feel some kind of way if we know we're putting money aside and we stacking paper and we see that money build up. It gets you a little excited, right? But don't let it get you excited to want to go out and buy. Just get you excited because the money's building up, because we're working on a plan. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. I pray that it's been a blessing to you and that this will really help you out. Now, remember, again, wealth management is 80% mindset, behavior, 20% skill. So if I can get you to change the way you think, I promise you change the way you live. Till next time. See you next First Friday with finances. First Friday Finances with your host, Marvin Scott. Have a good one.